Hello, welcome to this lesson of Mastering 5th Grade Math. We'll continue working with dividing fractions. Here we will divide fraction by another fraction. And you'll see that it isn't really very hard because we've been building our skills step by step. So what if we have the fraction 1/2 and we're dividing by 1/4? Well, now that you know how we've handled it in the last section, it shouldn't be a huge surprise to you how we're going to do this. All we're going to do is we're going to leave the first fraction alone. We're going to change the division to multiplication, and we'll take the second fraction and flip it over. That's all we're doing. Then we multiply the tops. 1 times 4 is 4. Multiply the bottoms. 2 times 1 is 2. And then we try to simplify, but then we see 4 over 2 is the same as 4 divided by 2. And of course, that's 2. So the answer to this, if you take 1/2 and divide it by 1/4, it goes in 2 times. That makes sense. I mean, if you think about it, if you start out with a half of a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, you just cut it in half. And what you start with is a half of the sandwich. How many times will 1/4 of a sandwich go into that? It's only going to go 2 times. And that kind of makes sense from everyday experience. So let's see what happens when we have 1/3 divided by 2/7. 1/3 divided by 2/7. Well, same sort of thing. We're going to take the first fraction, leave it alone, take the division, change it to multiplication, take this fraction, flip it over. So it'll become 7/2. And then we will multiply. Tops, 1 times 7 is 7. 3 times 2 is 6. Now that's the answer, but that's improper. So what we want to do is divide and see how many times will 6 go into 7. That can only go 1 time with the remainder of 1 left over, and we always write it over the denominator. So 1 and 1/6. So if we take 1/3 of a pizza, how many times will 2/7 fit into there? Well, it'll go 1 whole time and a little bit more, 1/6 more. That's how you interpret the results there. What if we have 1/5 and divided by 2/5? 1/5 divided by 2/5. So it's the same sort of story. What we're doing is we'll take the first fraction and we'll leave it alone, 1/5. We'll take this and change it to multiplication. We'll take this and flip it over. We'll flip it upside down, 5/2. And then now we just do multiplication. 1 times 5 is 5. 5 times 2 is 10. So we're about ready to circle that, but then we notice, hey, wait a minute, we can simplify this by dividing the top by 5 and the bottom by 5. 5 divided by 5 is 1. 10 divided by 5 is 2. And so you have 1/2. All right, 1/2. So just cruising on down here, we're just getting a little bit more practice each time. What if you have 7/8 divided by 1/4? Well, the first fraction stays alone or stays untouched, but we change this to multiplication and we flip this over, 4 over 1. All right, so then we take 7 times 4, we multiply that, we get 28, and 8 times 1 gives us 8. So now we have 28 over 8, and we try to simplify that. We do see that they're both even numbers, so we could simplify it right now, but we also notice it's improper. So how many times will 8 go into 24? 8 times 3 is 24, and 8 times 4 is 32. That's too many. So 8 times 3 will be 24. It'll go 3 times. The difference between 28 and 24 is just a remainder of 4, and we always write it over the 8. Now you see we have 2 even numbers here because we had 2 even numbers to begin with. So we still need to simplify it. We can divide the top by 4 and the bottom by 4. And we will get 3. 4 divided by 4 is 1. 8 divided by 4 is 2. So we get 3 and 1/2. So if we have 7/8 of a pizza, which is almost a whole pizza, and we divide it by 1/4, that will go 3.5 times. Just a few more here just to get a little bit more practice. What if we have 1/4 divided by 3/8? So same story. We leave the 1/4 alone, change the division to multiplication, and flip this fraction over, 8/3. And then we just multiply the top. 1 times 8 gives us 8. 4 times 3 gives us 12. So we get 8/12. That is basically the answer, but we can simplify it. We can divide both of these by 4. If you think about it, 4 will go into each one of them. 8 divided by 4 is 2, and 12 divided by 4 is 3. So that's the answer, 2/3. 2/3. Same process each and every time. We're just gaining practice. What if we have 4/5 divided by 3/10? Well, the 4/5 stays alone. The division becomes multiplication. The fraction gets flipped over, 10 divided by 3. So now we know how to multiply fractions so well. 4 times 10 is 40. 5 times 3 is 15. Now we have a couple of options. We can simply convert this to a mixed number straight away, but we also notice that we can simplify this. We can divide both of these by 5. So let's just to make it different, let's divide them first. 40 divided by 5 is 8, because 8 times 5 is 40. 15 divided by 5 is 3. So now we have an improper fraction that's much smaller. We still need to convert it to a mixed number. How many times will 3 go into 8? Well, 3 times 3 is 9. That's too many times. 3 times 2 is 6. That's perfect. The difference between 8 and 6 is 2. That's the remainder. And we always write it over the denominator. So we get 2 2/3. That's the final answer. Now we have one last problem we're going to do. What if you have 5/8 divided by 7/10? Well, to handle that, the 5/8 stays out front. The division turns into multiplication, and the 7/10 gets flipped upside down to 10 over 7. And then we multiply the top. 10 times 5 is 50. Multiply the bottoms. 8 times 7 is 56. So we have 50 over 56, and that is the answer, but we also notice that we can divide the top by 2 and the bottom by 2. So 50 divided by 2 is 25, and 56 divided by 2, if you do that, is going to give you 28. And if you're not sure that 56 divided by 2 is 28, you can just do it off to the side. 56 divided by 2, what you're going to have, 2 will go into 5 2 whole times, because 2 times 2 is 4. When we subtract, you get a 1. Then you'll drag that 6 down, giving you 16. 2 goes into 16 8 times, because 8 times 2 is 16. And then the remainder is 0, so you get an answer of 28 if you can't do this in your head. So you get 25 over 28. That's the final answer.